Okay, these are your notes for Unit 2.1.2, Combining Like Terms. Make sure you get that written at the top of your page, as well as our essential question, and we have some vocab to get down today. So again, a reminder, you have a right side and a left side. We're starting on the right side. Those are the notes we do together, that your answers will always be 100% correct. Left side is where you do some practice problems that we'll go over. Our essential question today is, how can I use algebra tiles and their perimeter to better understand combining like terms or simplifying? Remember that perimeter is around a shape, whereas area was the inside. We've got some vocab words to get down. The first is variable. A variable is an unknown number or amount. Coefficient is the number that sits next to a variable in front of it. So like 6x, the coefficient is the 6. A constant is a number that's all by itself, so no variables. Think of it as your unit tiles. So 6x plus 5, the constant is the 5. And here's our important one for today, like terms. Like terms have the same variable raised to the same power. So for something to be a like term, it has to have the same variable, like x, but it also has to be raised to the same exponent, so x squared. If that confuses you, you can think of like terms as the same shape. So an x tile is not the same shape as an x squared tile, so those are not like terms. We'll pause here and we'll let you finish copying your vocab. Okay, next, what I want you to do is, again on the right side, copy this little table that I have set up. So I've drawn each of our algebra tiles, the unit tile, the x, the y, the x squared, the y squared, and the x by y. That's shape, and then I've given myself a column for area and a column for perimeter. So again, I'll pause here and let you guys get this copied down. All right, so yesterday we went over, well, not yesterday, Monday, we went over where the names for each of these came from. And we know that the names come from their areas. So we know that we got the unit tile because it was 1 by 1. So it was our unit tile. So we're going to fill out the area for all of our shapes. We remember our x was an x by 1. So 1 times x, and that's why it's called the x shape. Our y tile is a 1 by y, so it's 1 times y, which is why it's called the y tile. Our x squared is an x by x shape, so x by x equals x squared. The y is similar, it's a y by y, so y times y equals y squared. And then our last one, the longer side is the y, the shorter is the x, so it is an x by y shape, which gives us x, y. So that should have been a review from our previous notes. The perimeter is what's new. So again, remember, perimeter is adding the distance around each shape. So for our unit tile, that's easy. The perimeter is 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which equals 4. Right? The perimeter is 1 unit all the way around, so it's 4. The x tile is, we have an x side, a unit, we have another x, and another unit. This is where we're going to work on combining like terms. So we can write it this way, this long way, or we can combine some things. So like terms are the same variable. So these two x's can be combined together to make 2x. Pretty straightforward. 2 x's, you put a 2 in front of the x. And we know that 1 and 1, when those get added together, just become 2. And I like to use these highlighters. That's not a highlighter. I like to use these highlighters to help me figure out what to combine. So I suggest that if you haven't already, you get out a couple colors of highlighters if you have them. If not, you could use like colored pencils or markers to underline with, just something to show what goes with what. So I'm going to keep using my highlighters as I go. All right, this next one, the Y tile, if we measure all the way around it, it has a side length of Y. It has a side length of 1. It has a side length of Y. And it has a side length of 1. So there's the perimeter. Again, we could leave it long like this, or we can go in and combine like terms. I've got a Y and a Y. That's the same variable. So that's going to be 2y. We can combine those to say 2y. And I've got a 1 and a 1 that can be combined. We know 1 plus 1 is 2. And so there's where the 2 comes from. Hopefully that's starting to make a little bit of sense on how we combine things to write it. We call it simplified. When it's shorter, it's simplified. Next up is our x squared. So on this one, we have a side length that's x long. We have another one that's x long. We have another one. In fact, all of the side lengths are x long. This is an easy one to combine. These are all the same variable. So I just add them together. I have 4 of them, so I write that as 4x. Pretty straightforward. So this y one is going to work pretty similar. I have one side length of y, another one is y. All of the side lengths of the y squared is y. Again, these are all the same variables, so I can add them together. I have 4 of them, so that's going to equal 4y. This last one's going to be a little trickier because I have a side length of x, then I have a side length of y, then I have a side length of x, and then I have a side length of y. When I combine these guys, I see that I have an x here and an x here. So I can put those together. I have 2 of them. So it's 2x. And I have a y here and a y here. And again, I have 2 of those. So that's going to be plus 2y. So we combine like terms for looking for the same variables, and then you count how many of them you have so that you can put them together. Okay, so now we're going to switch over to our left side where you're going to do some practice problems that we will then go over. So this is what your right side should look like. You've got your essential question, your vocab, and your diagram with the colors or the highlighting. So our left side, the first thing that we're going to do is number 1 here says match the terms in the left column with the like terms that match it in the right. So you need to copy down the instructions as well as these, 14 different things. And then I've given you an example of what matching looks like. I've connected the 3x with the 5x. So I'm going to pause the video here and give you time to copy this and complete it, and then we will go over it. Okay, so if we're going to go over this, we've already done the first one. B is a negative 4y squared. So I'm looking for a y squared on the other side. And I see that in number 1, so I'm going to connect B to number 1. C is 6a to the fourth. So on the right side, I'm going to be looking for an a raised to the fourth. I see that on number 5, so C is going to connect with 5. D, 10s. The variable is s, so I'm going to be looking for an s on the right side. I see that in number 6, so D gets connected with 6. E, there is no variable, so I'm just going to be looking for something on the other side that's just a number with no variable. Number 3, 13, will match with E because neither of those have variables. Those are units, those are constants. F, 6xy, okay, I'm going to be looking on the right side for x and y right next to each other. Number 2, 7xy, so F and 2 match up. And lastly, G is C, so I'm going to be looking for a C, and I see that on number 4, negative 7C. All right, any questions on this? So number 2 is I'm going to give you some shapes, and you need to add the perimeter and then combine like terms. So I've given you little hints here by showing you that this length is x, this little piece is 1, this little piece is y. So you need to add up each little chunk. I would write it out as a sentence, so I would start mine with x plus 1 plus y, and keep going for each section. And remember, you need to do the top, the side, the bottom, and the other side. And you're going to do that for A and B, and then we will go over it. So I'll pause it here for you to be able to have some time to copy and write it down. Okay, so it says not only to write it down, but to write it down and then simplify. So I have an x plus 1 plus y plus 1 plus x. So that's the top, plus 1 is the side, plus x plus 1 plus y plus 1 plus x is the bottom, and plus 1 is the other side. So I've made the whole box. Now it's time to go in and combine like terms. I have an x, I have one here. I'm going to highlight all my x's. Now I'm going to highlight all of the y's that I see. And lastly, all of the units, so things that don't have a variable. So when you're done with this process, everything should be highlighted in a color or underlined, whatever you're using in a color. That makes it super easy to then go in and say, I've highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4 x's, so I can rewrite that as 4x. Then I can say I've highlighted 2 y's, so I can rewrite that as 2y. And then lastly, I highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ones. So then I just write plus 6. So that's the full to the simplified. B is going to be a little more difficult. So if I'm labeling B, I know this is x, this is 1, this is 1, this is 1, this is 1, this is 1. This part is not fully x, it's cut short. We know how short it is because that unit tile is cutting it off. So that little chunk, whoa, I don't know what I just did. That little chunk is x minus 1. Does that make sense? So if I add all these little pieces together, I'm going to get x. I'm going to move it up here a little bit. X plus 1 plus x minus 1 plus 1 plus 1. How many more of those do I need? Plus 1 plus 1. All right, I think that's it. So if I go in and I do my highlighting, I see an x here, and an X here. And then I see my units here, 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 and there. Not the most clear, but that's okay. So I have 2 of my X's highlighted. So I have 2 X's. This is where it gets a little trickier because I have +1, -1. So we know that 1 minus 1 is 0, and then +1, +1, +1, +1. So I believe it should be +4 unit tiles because I subtracted this one was a subtract, actually not that one. This one was a subtracting. So it was 1 minus 1 plus 1 plus 1. So I should have 1 minus 1, 1, 2, yep, 2x plus 4. If you got that one on your own, awesome. That was a tricky one. Okay, now we're gonna move completely away from our pictures, and you are just going to simplify by combining like terms. So I would like you to copy what the actual question says so that you know what it's asking you to do, and then copy down A and B, go in and highlight, and then combine the things that you highlighted the same color. So I will pause here, and then we'll go over it. Okay, if I'm gonna go through and highlight like terms, I'm gonna just start at the beginning. I have a 3y squared. Do I have any more y squareds? I have a y, but that's not the same shape, so they don't get combined. I don't see any more, so that one's on its own. 2xy is next. That's going to get yellow. Do I have any others where there's an x right next to a y? I do not see any, so I'm going to leave that. In fact, this one doesn't have anything to combine, so the only thing that I would say you want to do is you want to rearrange it, and we put it in alphabetical order from not having exponents to exponents. So if I were to rewrite this in alphabetical order, I would start with 3x, then move to 2x squared, then move to my y, then my 3y squared, then I do my combined, and then you do your unit. So that's a bad example. That's okay. B will be better. So I'm going to highlight my 2x. I'm going to look for anywhere else I see an x. Do I have any more x's? Nope. So I'm going to move to the next one. Just a unit, 4 unit tiles. Do I have any other places where I just have units? Nope. So I'm going to move on. 2xy, I don't think I have any more of those, so I can move on. X squared, nope. Y squared, this is one where I have another, so I'm going to highlight that guy in pink. And so that just leaves, it looks like one more, and that's y. So now I want to try to rewrite these in the correct order. So that's going to start with 2x. Then I move to the x squareds. Then I move to the y's. These two get combined, so y squared and 3y squared become 4y squared. And then I had my 2xy. And lastly, the unit plus 4. If we have time, I might throw another one up for you guys, or you have your exit ticket. So that is combining like terms. The best trick to help you with this is to use the colors. Use the highlighting, use the markers so that you can easily see what goes with what.